President Trump has repeatedly promised that he would bring troops home.
We want to bring our troops back home.
We're bringing our troops back home. I got elected on bringing our soldiers back home.
I want to get out. I want to bring our troops back home.
Our boys, our young women, our men, they're all coming back.
With the war in Afghanistan now in its 18th year, troops in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, a new base in Niger, the U.S. has a far-ranging footprint abroad. We wanted to answer the question, are the troops really coming home? There are two typical ways in which the public can see how many troops the U.S. has on the ground in each country. One can look at the Defense Manpower Data Center, the DMDC, a slightly technical but well-organized website that documents every country and the troop count by service every quarter. Or you can get a much rougher estimate from press releases that the U.S. military will release sporadically. The DMDC is not perfect. It's a time-stamped estimate that oftentimes excludes special operations forces, some temporary assignments, and lags in accuracy because it's published every 3 months. But it's long been an important tool for researchers, journalists, politicians, and the general public to get a more specific understanding of where troops are and when. According to this data, the total number of troops in these three countries was over 160,000 in 2008, with the bulk of them in Iraq. They then dropped to a low of around 14,000 in June 2015, around about a year before Trump was elected, after a drawdown in Afghanistan. But the numbers altogether had increased during the Trump presidency. And then, in September 2017, no more numbers. A little over a year ago, following the ambush in Niger, the Pentagon, under the leadership of Secretary Mattis, decided to stop reporting the troop levels in those three countries through the database and in official releases. Now, here's the Excel spreadsheets that lists where American service members are and shows information on every other operation. And here's where we should be able to see how many troops are deployed in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. But the cells are blank. Where does the public go to understand how many U.S. service members are in these countries?
I think now the information is scattershot, and you really need someone to accumulate or aggregate the data, because otherwise the public's sort of at a loss. So in terms of a one-off database, no, it's not really there anymore, because Secretary Mattis in particular decided that giving that information out was giving too much to potential adversaries, and he wanted to rein in the outflow of information in general.
Here's what we do know. In October, the DoD posted a press release saying that since May, 14,000 troops had been added to the area of responsibility, which, among other countries, includes Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. But later in October, General Austin Miller, the top U.S. commander in Afghanistan, said approximately 2,000 U.S. troops had left Afghanistan in the past year.
We're always looking to optimize the force. Unbeknownst to the public, as part of our optimization, over the last year, at least 2,000, we've reduced our authorized strength by 2,000 here.
But we don't know how many of those troops have come home yet. When we reached out to the Department of Defense, they told us that the U.S. had approximately 13,000 troops in Afghanistan, 5,200 troops in Iraq, and 3,000 in Saudi Arabia. That Iraq number hasn't changed much since 2017. But they didn't respond to questions about the DMDC redaction specifically, nor did they give information about troop levels in Syria. To be sure, every administration has wrestled with transparency and the Pentagon differently. Sometimes it comes up in troop levels, other times in reporting airstrikes, or in what's disclosed in daily updates. The secrecy of the Pentagon has always ebbed and flowed. But the decision back then to black out data from these three conflict zones was important and followed mixed messages from Secretary Mattis and the White House. In 2017, for example, President Trump said this:
"We will not talk about numbers of troops or our plans for further military activities."
But at a press conference in 2017, Mattis promised there would be more accountability on troop data. He said, "Frankly, I had to change the accounting process because we couldn't figure out how many troops we had there. So believe me, I understand the problem." So in 2018, some Democrats on the House Committee on Oversight penned a letter to Mattis urging him to reverse the decision and stand by precedent. The data had been previously available for more than a decade, as both President Bush and President Obama published full troop numbers, which we've had since 2008. There's such a lack of consistent information on troop levels that the Congressional Research Service, which typically updates a report on troops to deliver to Congress, also said that they didn't have the numbers. Some lawmakers argue it's critical that the decision to withhold the data is reversed. Here's Representative Jimmy Gomez, one of the Democratic lawmakers who signed the 2018 letter.
I know that they say that we can get them on classified briefings, but the thing is, classified briefings prevent us from actually sharing that information with the public. So we can't even share that classified information with the staff. So we might be able to get some of it within, but we couldn't, like if we were developing a policy, we could not reference that information we received. So the public is still sort of in the dark when it comes to the troop levels. A lot of elected officials, especially this president, made commitments to withdraw troops and the endless wars in the Middle East, right? And he's claimed that he's done that. And a lot of those decisions the troop levels actually tell a different story.
One example is Trump's abrupt withdrawal from northeastern Syria.
Syria, let them take care of it. Let them take care of it. We want to bring our troops back home.
Trump said those troops would be coming home. But we don't fully know that yet. A coalition spokesperson, for example, said they were continuing their withdrawal and that at least some troops were being repositioned to secure the oil fields in other parts of Syria.
Well, President Trump is highly erratic. So one day he's calling for a full withdrawal from Syria or Afghanistan, and the next he's saying 1,000 troops will stay in Syria and an unknown number will stay in Afghanistan. So it's very tough to gauge what's going on because we don't actually know the total number of troops in a lot of these theaters. I'll say this, I think the general sort of impetus that Trump has in these wars is to bring most, if not all, of the troops home. But he often is confronted by the reality on the ground that when you do that, you then unleash a whole basket of thorny other issues that you're confronted with.
Some lawmakers do say that redacting troop levels may make sense in certain cases. A spokesman for the Republicans on the House Armed Services Committee, led by Representative Mac Thornberry, said this in a statement. The committee receives frequent classified updates on troop levels. While Mr. Thornberry prefers transparency where practical, factors like host nation preference, force protection, and operational security have to be considered. The Department of Defense might argue that there are national security reasons for not releasing the data. What do you say to that argument?
I think there may be national security exceptions where you don't want to disclose every boot that's on the ground for various reasons, whether it be covert operatives or, sort of some select elite special forces along the lines. But the broad picture, the broad number of troops or soldiers, boots on the ground, those figures should be put out because, look, the bottom line is the enemy knows that we're there anyway. The idea that basically you can hide the total number of fighters on the ground from the Americans when the people they're fighting overseas have a pretty good idea of how many are there doesn't really make much sense to me.
Experts say that it's not just about the database. It's more about how the public comes to find out what wars the U.S. has committed to and why.
I'd say a broader point from my perspective is that what's not being communicated to the American people very well is why we're fighting in these different areas or what the goals are, what the objectives are, and why there's a continuing commitment. And I'm a big believer that the American people should know why their sons and daughters are being deployed to these, and fathers and mothers are being deployed to these theaters, for what purpose.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.